Okay, we are here again in a place.
Are you sure we are okay?
Okay.
Okay.
I just had a bagel.
That was a savory donut.
It was a good savory donut.
It was. I will say it was the best bagel I have ever eaten, because I don't like bagels usually, and that one was actually pretty good. It needed some butter on it or something though, because it was dry. But
Yeah.
that's just.
But even then, like, I'm used to eating just like an entire loaf of bread as a meal, and that was it was pretty good. Very reminiscent.
Man shall not live by bread alone.
I don't. I also drink water. Okay, but only on Tuesdays.
Only drink water on Tuesday?
I don't know. Is today a Tuesday?
Yes.
Then no, because I haven't had any water yet today.
That's not good.
Actually, I may have taken like one drink. But anyway, we're back with another mention of prayer in Deuteronomy.
Yeah. It's not fair to even call it a mention. I mean,
No.
It actually is. This is
a scripted prayer.
Yeah, a prescribed prayer. This is prescribed means like you're told exactly what to say. It's a commanded prayer. Are you okay?
Yeah, just thinking about medicine.
So yeah, it's prayer's like medicine for the soul.
They do?
Prayer is like medicine, not prayer likes medicine. Are you here?
Yes.
Okay. Can we move on? Okay, so this situation, Moses is giving them commands.
Yeah, and that's new.
Yeah. And when they bring in the first fruits, there was a big to do about that.
Yes.
The first fruits festival kind of thing. And so they have to put it all in the basket, and they bring it. God's going to choose the place, he says, where they're going to bring it to, which is, eventually going to be the temple, the tabernacle, wherever the tabernacle gets set up. Eventually it winds up being Jerusalem for the rest of the time. But at first it's just, the tabernacle wherever it's set up. And so he's like, you're gonna bring this to the priest, and you're gonna tell the priest, okay, I'm gonna declare to the Lord today that I've come into the land that you swore to give us, to our fathers to give us. And the priest's going to take the basket, and he's going to set it by the altar, or this is an offering. You know what? I don't think I did. Mm-hmm. This is Deuteronomy 26, beginning really verse 2, and we're going to go on down. There's actually 2 prayers in this section, so we'll probably just do one now, and we'll do the other one next time. Yep. Okay. So they're going to bring this offering, and the priest's going to take it. They're going to lay it by the altar. Everything, get it. This one's not really a burnt offering. What this really is God's way of providing for the priests. Yeah. So the people bring the offerings, and then they're different ones. Some of them they burned them, and then obviously they wouldn't have been. But in a lot of these, and I actually had a chart that showed all this. I have to pull that up sometime. Talk about it in another series, because we're not really talking about offerings in this series. But the priest would get some of this. Yeah. It would be the way that they feed their families. Yeah. So a lot of the offerings, some of the sin offerings, for example, were just it was for God and you burned it, but a lot of the offerings were to the 11 tribes feeding the one tribe that was serving God and doing all the sacrificing and stuff. Yeah. So that's kind of the idea here. So this isn't going to be stuck on the altar and burnt to a crisp and stuff. They bring all their first fruits, so all the different things that they've harvested, they bring it and they pray. And then he then said, this is the response. This is basically the prayer that you're going to pray to the Lord. And it's kind of an odd one. It's an odd, because it's kind of in a third person. You're speaking to the Lord in third person as opposed to first person, or like second, like instead of saying you or thou or whatever, you're speaking to the Lord and calling him the Lord, and yet you're talking to him. So it's a little weird. And so they start out saying, a wandering Aramean, or some translations will say Syrian. Remember, their father Jacob was not I mean, he wasn't an Israelite because he became Israel. So
yes,
his descendants were Israelites. He wasn't an Israelite. He was a Hebrew. He was a descendant of Eber, but like his father before him and his grandfather before him. But he said, a wandering Aramean or Syrian was my father, and he went down into Egypt and sojourned there. We remember that. Few in number. Remember, there's like 76 or 78 or something like that. Different. And of course, depending on whether you count Joseph, who's already down there with his family. But anyway, so he's sojourned there, few in number, and there he became a great nation, mighty and populous. And the Egyptians treated us harshly and humiliated us and laid on us hard labor. So now again, are they telling God anything he doesn't already know?
No.
Not at all. Not at all.
I think a lot of things with prayer, especially with like the scripted prayers in the Bible, are supposed to be like, I already know this, but I want you to say this to make sure that you know this.
Right. Yeah, it's a reminder to them of where they came from more than it is to remind God. Absolutely. All right, so they put him on hard labor. Then verse 7 says, Then we cried to the Lord, the God of our fathers, and the Lord heard our voice and saw our affliction, our toil, and our oppression. And again, this is where it's kind of weird because this is the prayer. They're saying this to the Lord, but they're still talking about the Lord like they're talking to somebody else about the Lord instead of. But it's a little unusual, but it's the way it is. And so then we cried to the Lord, the God of our fathers, and the Lord heard our voice and saw our affliction, saw our toil and our oppression. And the Lord brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm, with good deeds of terror. I love that. Good deeds of terror. That's an interesting phrase. With signs and wonders. And he brought us into this place and gave us this land, a land flowing with milk and honey. Now, of course, remember, by this time, a lot of the people that Moses is talking to, the reason he's repeating this is because most of that first generation has already died. So he's telling this generation, now you don't you forget where you came from. And this is what you say. And so, and he's talking to them about this is the prayer they're going to have to say when they go into the promised land. Remember, at this point, they haven't crossed over yet.
Yep.
They're still in the wilderness, but they're going to be going over into the promised land. And so, then of course they're going to set it down, and they're going to put that down there and worship God some more with the offering. And it's interesting, the combination of the offering and the prayer. And we kind of still, we do that a lot of times before we take the collection, before we take up the offering. At church, we still say a prayer, that we'll give cheerfully, or, whatever the person praying prays about. And then and then we give our offering. And, we've kind of missed that with the pandemic. Everybody's putting it in the box, and we're not passing the trays around.
Yeah.
And we're kind of missing. We're missing that prayer part, and we do need to acknowledge that probably some way. We have to figure out a way to have some acknowledgement of the giving of that offering. It's not a basket of fruits and vegetables, but still to acknowledge that the blessings God has given us and that we're giving back to Him, even though we're not doing it quite the same way. And with the way they did it was definitely an individual thing. It was each person came to the priest and brought their basket, and they went through this procedure with each one of them. It's amazing. Imagine how long it took.
Yeah, especially when you've got 11 tribes coming to one tribe.
Well, that's like 10 people for every one person. But not all of the Levites were priests that would be able to do this either. So
I was trying to simplify things.
Yeah. Well, but 11 to 1. No, there's no wonder that the Firstfruits festival lasted like a week, because you need that much time to get everybody to go through the process.
Yep.
And it's not long. I mean, everybody could do that in like a minute or two.
Yeah.
So you could do like 30 an hour.
Yeah.
and
per person.
each priest could have 30 people come through.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they could do them faster than that. I don't know. But again, it's not about rushing.
Did we finish reading the prayer?
We did finish reading that
Okay.
prayer, and even talked about verse 11. It says, "You shall rejoice in all the good that the Lord your God has given you and to your house, you and the Levite and the sojourner who's among you." So everybody's rejoicing. Sometimes we think about, and we use the word sacrifice, and so we think this is somebody giving up something, and it's a sad, not necessarily sad, because you're sacrificing because God's blessed you, but we think but this is a rejoicing time. And in fact, with some of these offerings, not particularly this one, but with some of the offerings, the free will offering, for example, they actually turned it into what we might call a feast or a fellowship meal, where they sacrificed it and then they cooked it on the altar, but they didn't burn it. I mean, they did the entrails, they burned up and stuff, but the meat they actually then shared with their friends and family and the priest, and they all shared together, having this meal together.
Law, in some cases.
Yeah. Oh, well, definitely the priest got some of it.
In some cases, it actually says once the sacrifice is completed, you take the whatever the sacrifice was, you take that meat home and you divide it up amongst your family. And when you
eat it, some of them they ate it right there at the tabernacle. Yeah. It was like a picnic. We have a picnic. It's amazing stuff. Sometimes we have this very limited view. I enjoy going through these because honestly, I mean, I know I've read through the Bible multiple times. I didn't remember this.
Yeah.
This was a prayer. This whole setup, this whole situation. It's interesting.
It is.
We sometimes have such a limited view of the way things were under the Old Testament law.
Yeah.
And we forget the rejoicing that went on and the good things and the reminders of the good that God had done for them.
And I think part of that is because as Christians, we focus a lot more on the New Testament.
Yeah.
And so we just see as, the Old Testament, well, that's Leviticus. It's just a bunch of rules and it's not good. And the Pharisees and Sadducees corrupted everything and made things even more not as good. And we forget, well, no, that was still God's law.
Right.
God made that.
And if we remember in the book of Psalms, multiple times, especially Psalm 119, but other Psalms as well, David and other psalmists talk about the beauty of God's law, the perfection of God's law. And sometimes, we think, oh, well, that law wasn't good. We've got a good law now. It was a good law. The people couldn't do it. They couldn't keep up with it. They weren't good enough to live up to the standard, but it was a good law. And
doesn't mean we don't have a better law now.
Right. Well, there are definitely better things. I don't want to go back to that one.
No.
But yeah, it's an amazing thing. And we're going to, in our next time, we're going to look at, there's another situation in this chapter as well regarding the tithe that we'll talk about. But this is the first fruits. Their crop is coming in. And so they're rejoicing on that. And hopefully they didn't pick it too soon. I picked some blueberries the other day and they weren't quite ripe yet. They were still sour. So you don't want to take God the sour blueberries.
Yeah.
You want to wait till it's ripe, and then it's good, and it's something to rejoice over. But this is a wonderful thing, wonderful opportunity that they had to remember where all of their blessings come from, and we need to do that as well. Right? Yeah, we need to talk about praying for blessing and offering and those things. We'll have to add that to our list of other things to pray
and asking.
Yeah.
We haven't prayed. We've been praying about asking for a lot of things, but we haven't really prayed about thanking Him for a lot
we haven't talked about the thanksgiving, the praise.
We need to do several lessons on specifically praise, because praise is one that a lot of people
neglect.
A lot of people neglect it because it's kind of difficult for us, I believe.
Well, sometimes we kind of just mush it together with Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it's very easy to do.
Yeah, because we're thankful for, and so that's Thanksgiving. Anyway, we'll have to do that in another lesson.
Yes. Think that's about it for this one. Hope you enjoyed it. You learned some things about prayer and the way sacrifices worked in the Old Testament, and kind of some of the
And the idea of a specific written prayer. We generally try to avoid that. We talk about that almost like it's a bad thing. But under the law of Moses, it was a thing that there was certain written prayers that they were to do.
Yeah, and in some cases that still holds true today, where somebody gave a prayer in the Bible, and that's just what you need to say to God. And so,
or for that matter, just writing down your own prayer.
Yes.
You know what you want to pray. Especially, I know some people who maybe they don't write down the whole prayer, but they have notes when they go up to lead prayer in front of the congregation, because it's very easy up there to get flustered and forget what you were going to say. And so maybe they don't have a whole prayer written out, but they have this. I want to mention this and this and this and this, and they have a list of things, and they just go over it. And that's okay. That's good, because you want, and that doesn't mean it's not from the heart. It's just that you're afraid you'll forget because of the nervousness of the situation. And some of the most beautiful prayers that I have heard prayed from the pulpit, from the front of the auditorium during worship, have been somewhere where someone took the time. Sometimes people just get up there and wing it. Well, I'll just say whatever comes to mind. That's okay, but if we put as much time, and when it comes to the preacher making his lesson, or a teacher making their lesson, or the songs that we sing in the selection, and we put thought and time into how much we're giving, and the Lord's Supper, we want to concentrate on that, and we prepare for that, and we have a devotional talk, table talk that goes with that. Why not with our prayer too? Think about it ahead of time. Think about, what do I want to say, and make sure that we do say the things that we want to say, and include all those things in the prayer. So I think that's a good idea.
It is.
All right.
We'll see y'all tomorrow.
Yeah.
Hopefully. And stay safe till then. Keep on praying, and keep growing and learning.
Yep. Have a good one. Bye.